Hello everyone, this is Strucker, and I'm here today to show you how to use one of my latest add-ons. It's called What's Next. It is a rotation helper. It takes in a list of the abilities you want to use during combat, and conditions you want to use them under, analyzes those conditions during battle, and suggests the ability to use. That way, if at any point you lose track of your rotation, or if you're just trying to learn a new rotation, it'll help you out. It'll show you what you should be casting next. It's available on Curse and through the Twitch client. Again, it's called What's Next. Once you have it installed, you can open it up by finding the little question mark icon around your mini-map and left-clicking that. This will bring up the configuration window with all the blocks you currently have set up, all the spells that can be suggested, and under what conditions. As you can see, I have quite a few set up for my blood DK, because I use this add-on a ton. It is a lifesaver for me. So I'm going to go through the first few blocks, give you an idea of how they work. Try and give you enough of understanding that if you want to use this add-on and create your own blocks, you can. So the first block I have in here is for my repurposed spell focuser. If you know this item, it just applies a flask-like buff if you don't have a flask. So if I'm in a Mythic Plus and my flask runs out, or if it's low when I don't feel like using a flask, this just helps me make sure I keep my spell focuser up. There's no point not having at least that much of a buff up at all times. So on the left hand side you can see what's being suggested, and on the right hand side you can see the conditions for when to suggest it. In this case, I don't want to suggest it if I have the spell focuser buff, so if it's already up, don't suggest it. I don't want to suggest it if I have the Flask of the 10,000 Scars buff up, the Stamina Flask. Under either of those conditions, don't suggest it. Otherwise, it will suggest it. Let's see that in action, shall we? So you can see down here, my character currently has the Fell Focus buff. If I right-click that off, the add-on will think it needs to suggest that. Over here where it says What's Next is where the suggestions will appear. So if I right-click this off, and this whole thing is working correctly, you'll see this turn to Repurpose Spell Focuser. Right-click, there we go, Repurpose Spell Focuser. Now if I use that item, I have it down here in my action bars. As soon as I click that, the suggestions should go away, because the conditions are no longer met. There we go. What's next is just what it'll show when it doesn't have anything to suggest, when all of your blocks evaluate to false. Alright, so the next item on the list is my Apocalypse Drive. This is a trinket I use. I'll show you on my character sheet. Right there. And it just blocks a portion of the damage whenever I'm tanking melee attacks. So I want to use this whenever I'm in combat, and I'm taking damage from the target. I have it as melee or range damage so that it doesn't count spell damage, because the trinket doesn't work against that. So whenever I'm in combat and I'm taking damage from the target, you'll see the suggestion come up. I believe I can test that on the normal tank dummy over here. If I just start attacking it, it'll hit me back in a second. And there we go. Apocalypse Drive came up. You can see I have that down here in my action bars. If I cast that, it goes away, because the item is now on cooldown. In addition to the conditions you see here, it'll always include the spell or item's cooldowns as part of it. It will never suggest a spell or item that is currently on cooldown, unless it's going to be up within the next GCD. Okay, let's get out of combat with that test dummy, so we can stop suggesting obvious stuff. Alright, the next block is one that I have set up on all of my tunes, and it's one I highly recommend for anybody who uses the add-on. Is just your interrupt. It's always useful to have the interrupt on there. It'll tell you when this target can be interrupted, because a lot of the time I can't tell from the cast bar. I'm sure other people have other UI solutions, but this is mine. So, Mind Freeze is the DK interrupt. I want to suggest it whenever I'm in combat. The target is a valid target for, so it's an enemy, and within range of Mind Freeze. So in this case, whether they're in range of 15 yards. and if they're casting an interruptible spell. Pretty simple. Now, there's a lot more blocks set up here. I'm not going to go through them all. There's really no point. But I do want to show you how to set up your own blocks. So what's something useful we could do? Or something weird we could do? We could do asphyxiate. That's the stun. So let's say in some weird situation I just wanted to stun whenever it was off cooldown. I'd go in here, click this add button down here to add a new block, a new suggestion. Up here you'd click the action type. Asphyxiate is an ability, so ability is fine. You can also do items or macros. Now over here for spell name, I just find asphyxiate. There it is. Now I have to add the conditions under which I want this suggested. If I don't add any conditions, and I just save it as is, it'll always suggest this. Obviously not ideal. I'll always suggest it when it's off cooldown, I should say. But one of the basic checks for a lot of these is that you're in combat. I personally don't like to suggest things when I'm not in combat. Though I suppose if that's not a problem for you, you could leave that out. So I go to the combat tab for my conditions. As you can see, there's a ton of categories for these conditions. I've added pretty much every condition I can think of. If there's any in here that are missing that you'd find useful, just let me know and I can add them. Go over here, select the condition I want in that category. In this case, I want a very simple one, if player is in combat. Down here are the parameters for that condition. The in combat one is a very simple one. It only has one parameter, whether I can invert it or not. So say I wanted to suggest the ability only if I wasn't in combat, then I'd check this. That'll basically add a not in front of the condition. So not if player is in combat. If I uncheck that, it goes back to if player is in combat. So let's hit OK there. Now you can see there's one condition listed for asphyxiate. Now I never actually want to asphyxiate on cooldown, but we'll just pretend that's how it's going to be for now. So I'll click OK, and you can see it'll suggest it. Now one thing that's you'll notice if I try and use this block as it is, if player is in combat, so let's get in combat with one of these test dummies. Oh, I gotta hit save, sorry. Now asphyxiate is being suggested as a top ability. But you'll notice down here it's read out because it's not actually within range. So I need to add a condition to make sure it's actually within range. Another problem you'll see with this block, as we currently have it set up, is it will suggest it when my target is a friendly unit. A unit I can't asphyxiate, even if I wanted to. As much as I want to some NPCs. So I pull that back up. I want to fix both those problems. Fortunately, that's actually pretty easy. You go back into the asphyxiate block. You want to add a new condition. You want to go to the position and rotation category. And there's one check that does both of these. If the unit is a valid target for and is within range of spell name. Now this one has 3 parameters for controlling the condition. The first is the unit you want to test it against. In this case, target. And the spell you want to check it with. So with which spell is it within range of? In this case, it's asphyxiate. Now because this can use abilities that aren't in your spellbook, I can't just give you a drop down, so you have to type it out here. So asphyxiate. And I don't want to invert it. That would knot the entire thing. If you want to choose other units, you can. There's focus, there's mouse over, pet, pretty much any unit that you can think of. There's more complex ones in here if you want to do the raid target of raid member 23 or 33. I'm not sure why anyone would ever want to do that, but it's there if you ever decide to. For now, I'm just going to leave it on target. So I hit OK. Now, if target is a valid target for and is within range of asphyxiate. That seems like a good second condition. Let's close that, just save that. And now you'll notice it. Let's get in combat. So, whether I'm in range of asphyxiate, it's being suggested. If I back up out of range, it is no longer being suggested. If I go over and target an NPC, it is no longer suggested. Much better. Alright, well that's a quick guide to the What's Next add-on. There's a ton more to this add-on, from changing the appearance and sound effects for different abilities, so they really stand out, like really important abilities, to the way it works with multiple specs across classes. There's ways to import and export the blocks between players, so if you come up with something you really like, you can share it with all your friends, or share it on the forums with other people who use the same spec. Yep, there's a ton to the add-on. I can't go over all right now. There's actually a lot more the add-on can do that the UI doesn't currently allow, just because I haven't finished the entirety of the UI. But I hope the add-on serves you well. If you come up with anything great, feel free to share it. I'd love to see what people come up with it. And yeah, enjoy.